This time of year is always difficult for me, as we are bombarded with wicked spiritual energy that the masses seem to desire to masquerade as being pure. This year does seem a little different for me though, because to me, it doesn't seem like people are actually tying Yahusha to it, but just living in their traditions. But I could be wrong, I'm very much out the loop. For me, I am just marking those who are influencers, who claim to love Messiah, but they still celebrate this time because for those that actually do, they are truly living in rebellion at this point in time. But this time is also a blessing because it allows a chance for us to all review our faith and walk and understand a very big reason and point for why we should all not celebrate this pagan holiday. For many people, when they answer the question of why they don't celebrate Christmas, they often simply just state that because it's a pagan holiday. And for many, hallelujah, that is enough for them to make the decision to not participate. But there is an even bigger reason why we don't participate in this pagan holiday. Sadly, just the fact that it is a pagan holiday doesn't really drive the understanding home to those who don't really get why that matters. There is a bigger reason that all that share our faith in Messiah should have and should know. I realized that when I made that video about Messiah's true name and why it was so important to live in truth, I understood that there was a major understanding that is clearly not understood by many in the body. I did kind of explain it in that video, but apparently just a mention of it did not bring enough clarity for many. It is probably the biggest part of our faith, but also the most overlooked, and because of that, is taken most for granted. And because of this, lawlessness abounds. It is a reason why there are so many people that honestly feel that there is nothing wrong with celebrating pagan holidays like Christmas and Easter. It is why people feel like there are certain influences that just don't matter today, or that we can do certain things because it is the way the world has done things. If you have followed this channel, you should not be celebrating pagan holidays like Christmas, and this should be well known to you. But I want to take this time during this wicked season to reinforce a main understanding that surrounds our faith. There is an understanding that each and every one of us that love Messiah and are grafted into Israel, whether natural branches or wild, there is an understanding of our faith that each and every one of us must hold. And I believe that if this understanding is made clearer to everyone, then many other thoughts or decisions that we make in regards to our faith will be made with much more care because we all understand why we are the light of this world and how we are the salt of the earth that gives it its flavor. This is a topic that should be the basis of our walk and belief in Messiah. But in a time where a one-world religion is on the horizon, and there are so many people that are confused about their actual faith, this understanding needs to be a mainstay of everyone, particularly with any of you that watch this channel and believe that I am taking things to a level you can't understand. I want to explain the basis for all of this and why all these topics are so important to me, the ministry, and why I feel it should be important to you. We all say it that we should be holy, but many of us don't know what that even means. We all say we want to be set apart, but for many of us, we don't apply it fully. Yah chose Israel for a reason, and if you come to Yah through Yahusha, you are grafted into Israel, and therefore you have the same purpose Israel has. We are called to be a called out, set apart nation. And as we go into this new season, we all must take this seriously and make this the major part of our faith. So we are going to thoroughly discuss what actually makes us special and what our faith in Messiah requires. This may be a message you never heard before, but this is absolutely a message everyone who says they are a believer in Messiah must know and submit to. Let's begin. Okay, so I'm going to go in depth with this subject because it is something that has been neglected for so long, and that is why there is such a division within those who truly want to be Messiahs. Last week, I made a message about the separation of the wheat and the tares. And one huge reason why there is such a huge divide is because a major doctrine of Christianity leaves out the part about being set apart or holy. And if it is mentioned, people don't have a strong understanding around it. People believe that the faith is just about belief in Messiah, and once we accept him, we are done. But in Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 16, Yahusha said, "You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand. It gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light shine so before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. You see, he said we are the salt of the earth that gives the earth its flavor. He said we are the light of the world, letting our light shine before men. But how do we do this? You see, this understanding goes deeper within Israel, which is why in Messiah's ministry, he came to the lost sheep of Israel. And he didn't just go and tell the other nations this. They would not have understood this message because this was not the culture of the rest of the nations. Let me ask you, how many of you raised children that you might have spoiled maybe? Told them they were special, that they were different, that because of the way you're raising them, they were to be examples to the rest of the children their age. For many, maybe you did this because of how much you love your children, and you feel that the values that you have instilled in them would be able to influence the others that are around them, and by consequence, would make the world better. One major understanding that you need to have is that this is the culture and understanding of the ancient nation of Israel. They were called to be holy and set apart, and by them being set apart, they were to be the examples to the other nations. If you know the history of Israel, they failed at this, and instead of wanting to be priests of the world, they wanted to be like the other nations. For instance, when they wanted a king. This is the way that the rest of the nations were led. But instead of Israel being set apart and different and having Yahuwah be the one who represents them, they desired to be like the other nations. In turn, Yahuwah saying that they were rejecting him. The topic of being set apart is a big deal. And so I am going to go very hard in making this point because it is something that is very, very much overlooked. One major reason for this is because of our English language, which uses one word to describe this, and then this word later got hijacked to mean something else, so that when you read it or heard it, you thought about something else instead of what he was actually speaking of. That word is holy. You see, today when someone uses the word holy, it often gets attached to a thought of perfection or being divine. Today when people hear holy, they use the definition of being exalted or worthy of complete devotion as one perfect in goodness and righteousness. That's the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition. And that's what people hear. So this is what people first think about when they hear holy. Perfection. And this is what so many people think of when they hear this word holy. But the truth is that that definition makes the action of being holy more difficult and challenging than what Yah is actually saying to us. The Hebrew word for holy is kodesh. And what this word kodesh actually means brings more clarity to our faith. Now don't get alarmed that I'm referring to the Hebrew word. You can still use the word holy. You just need to assign the proper understanding to it past how the modern day church has made it out to be. So many people are so against understanding the Hebrew words. But if you ever do any deeper study, for those that don't know Hebrew, this is actually why we use the Strong's Dictionary, because it gives us more clarity on what was actually written. But anyway, to be holy is to be kodesh. Kodesh means to be consecrated or special or simply set apart. To be holy is to be set apart, to be called out. So mark that in your understandings. Now there's another word that we need to deal with, which is a saint. The definition of being a saint has also been hijacked. And just like with the word holy, it makes it more difficult than what Yah has meant it to be. The modern day definition of this word saint, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is a person acknowledged as holy or virtuous and typically regarded as being in heaven after death. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary says one officially recognized, especially through canonization, as preeminent for holiness. So in our definition of this word, we have assigned this title to people that the Roman Catholic Church decides to call saints, and these people have reached a level of sainthood. But that is a modern day religion of the tares, and these definitions have masqueraded our faith, and people don't fully understand who we are to be because these definitions have been changed. The Hebrew word for saints is actually kodeshim. This goes back to the Hebrew word for holy, like I explained earlier, which is kodesh, which again means set apart. Kodeshim means the set apart ones. This is quite different than how most people following religion know these words to be. So maybe, based from these two definitions from the actual Hebrew word that Israel was raised under, versus how the tares in modern day religion have taught it, maybe you can see why there is such confusion today. So now that we got that out of the way, I'm going to read a lot of scriptures to explain how important this was to Yah. I really want this point driven home, and if I show just how much he spoke on this, I think this may help drive the point home of what I've been trying to convey through this ministry. This is what he spoke to Israel. Remember, every time you see holy, this means kodesh, set apart. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak to the children of Israel. Exodus chapter 19, verse 6. And you shall be holy men to me. You shall not eat meat torn by beasts in the field. You shall throw it to the dogs. Exodus chapter 22, verse 31. For I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. You shall therefore consecrate yourselves, and you shall be holy, for I am holy. Neither shall you defile yourselves with any creeping thing that creeps on the earth. For I am Yahuwah, who brings you up out of the land of Egypt to be your Elohim. You shall therefore be holy, for I am holy. That's Leviticus chapter 11, verses 44 through 45. I will set my face against that man and will cut him off from his people, because he has given some of his descendants to Moloch, to defile my sanctuary and profane my holy name. Leviticus chapter 20, verse 3. Consecrate yourselves therefore and be holy, for I am Yahuwah, your Elohim, and you shall keep my statutes and perform them. I am Yahuwah, who sanctifies you. Leviticus chapter 20, verses 7 through 8. Here's a big one. And you shall be holy to me, for I, Yahuwah, am holy, and have separated you from the peoples, that you should be mine. Leviticus chapter 20, verse 26. And that you may remember and do all my commandments, and be holy for your Elohim. Numbers chapter 15, verse 40. For you are a holy people to Yahuwah your Elohim. Yahuwah your Elohim has chosen you to be a people for himself, a special treasure above all the peoples on the face of the earth. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6. For you are a holy people to Yahuwah your Elohim, and Yahuwah has chosen you to be a people for himself, a special treasure above all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 2. And that he will set you high above all nations which he has made, in praise, in name, and in honor, that you may be a holy people to Yahuwah your Elohim, just as he has spoken. Deuteronomy chapter 26, verse 19. Yahuwah will establish you as a holy people to himself, just as he sworn to you, if you keep the commandments of Yahuwah your Elohim and walk in his ways. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 9. And they shall call them the holy people, the redeemed of Yahuwah, and you shall be called sought out, a city not forsaken. Isaiah chapter 62, verse 12. Israel was holiness to Yahuwah, the first fruits of his increase. All that devour him will offend. Disaster will come upon them, says Yahuwah. That's Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 3. Just as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 4. That he might present her to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle, or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 27. But as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct, because it is written, Be holy, for I am holy. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 15 and 16. He who is unjust, let him be unjust still. He who is filthy, let him be filthy still. He who is righteous, let him be righteous still. He who is holy, let him be holy still. Revelation chapter 22, verse 11. And here's one all might know. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own special people, that you may proclaim the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light, who once were not a people, but are now the people of Elohim, who have not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. That's 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 9 through 10. I used all of those scriptures, and there are many more of them. I used all of them to make the point of how many times Yah has stressed how he is set apart, his name is set apart, and his people are set apart. Again, the word used was kodesh. When you see holy, it is to be kodesh. Now, before I continue, let's go over the other word, saint. Again, like I said earlier, the word for saints is kodeshim. This means set apart ones. It is important to really understand what Yah has been communicating to his people. I've commanded my sanctified ones. I have also called my mighty ones for my anger, those who rejoice in my exaltation. Isaiah chapter 13, verse 3. But the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Daniel chapter 7, verse 18. Until the Ancient of Days came, and a judgment was made in favor of the saints of the Most High, and the time came for the saints to possess the kingdom. Daniel chapter 7, verse 22. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and laws. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time and times and half a time. Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. When he comes in that day to be glorified in his saints and to be admired among all those who believe, because our testimony among you was believed. 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 10. Dare any of you, having a matter against another, go to law before the unrighteous, and not before the saints? Do you not know that the saints will judge the world? And if the world will be judged by you, are you unworthy to judge the smallest matters? That's 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 1 and 2. The nations were angry, and your wrath has come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that you should reward your servants, the prophets and the saints, and those who fear your name, small and great, and should destroy those who destroy the earth. Revelation chapter 11, verse 18. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are those who keep the commandments of Elohim and the faith of Yahusha. Revelation chapter 14, verse 12. So many scriptures that speaks on being set apart and being a set apart one. I grew up in the church, amongst, now I understand, many tares, and I was taught many falsehoods. In those churches, I was taught to worship the Messiah's birthday on a day that everyone knew was not right. But because it was tradition, we all just did it. We put up Christmas trees and practiced idolatry. But because it was all for Messiah, it was okay. I was taught that we don't need to rest on the Sabbath anymore because that was work-based doctrine. I was taught that we could eat unclean foods because none of that matters anymore. They said Yahuwah's Torah, his statutes and commandments, was nailed to the cross so we didn't have to do these things that our Creator spoke against. The irony was, even though our Creator, the one who made us, and these animals, he told us that we should abstain from eating these things, they claimed that because of Jesus, we were no longer held to those rules. Matter of fact, we were no longer held to most rules because we are saved by grace, which means that the most important thing for us to do was to believe in Jesus. Once we did that, we're set. I was told that if I desired to abstain from different things Yah spoke against, then I was a work-based believer that didn't accept grace. Basically, what I'm saying is that before I read the Bible for myself, I believed that my main job was to accept Jesus into my heart and then make sure I went to church, paid my tithe, and it would have been even better if I served in my actual local church. I was told that so many things don't matter, and the only thing that matters is knowing and focusing on Jesus. But when I started to read my Bible on my own, I started to realize that what the Bible was actually saying was quite different than what my family and friends and the churches I went to were telling me. When I brought it up to the older ones in my family and elders in church, I was met with hostility, and people wanted me to stop my search of understanding and just do things the way they all have done. But I did not side with these people. but moved away from their influence. And then I studied the scriptures diligently and found the difference between what I was learning in the churches and what I was reading in the scriptures. And the differences, and get this, the fact that Yah wants his people to be set apart, to be holy. And as I began to draw nearer to him, his spirit placed a desire for me to do things the way he has asked of us and desired from us. This is probably the biggest thing that most people do not understand about the Bible and Yah's chosen people, Israel. Like that verse, Leviticus chapter 20, verse 26 says, "And you shall be holy to me, for I, Yahuwah, am holy, and have separated you from the peoples, that you should be mine." You see, he chose and took a people unto himself, and desired that they were set apart from the rest of the nations. The rest of the nations of the world had their own way of living. They had their own way of worshiping their gods. They had their own thoughts that were according to their own gods. They had their own culture. For instance, that's why a big part of the way Greece conquered and controlled the known world at the time was not just by force, but by the spread of their culture. If a nation adapted to their culture and their way of life and their thinking, then that country was theirs. It's just like here in America. There are so many different cultures that make up being an American. But if you adapt to being an American, this American culture will often trump and defeat what you once were when you lived in your original country. When people come here, most people lose their morals and their values once they lived here for a period of time. You see, Yah chose Israel to be a holy and set apart people unto himself. This has always been his desire. If you read about how he led Israel into the promised land, he had specific rules about how Israel was to deal with the other nations. When Yahuwah Elohim brings you into the land which you go to possess, and has cast out many nations before you, the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than you. And when Yahuwah your Elohim delivers them over to you, you shall conquer them and utterly destroy them. You shall make no covenant with them, nor show mercy to them, nor shall you make marriages with them. You shall not give your daughter to their son, nor take their daughter for your son. For they will turn your sons away from following me, to serve other gods. So the anger of Yahuwah will be aroused against you and destroy you suddenly. But thus you shall deal with them. You shall destroy their altars, and break down their sacred pillars, and cut down the wooden images, and burn their carved images with fire. For you are a holy people to Yahuwah your Elohim. Yahuwah your Elohim has chosen you to be a people for himself, a special treasure above all the peoples on the face of the earth. Yahuwah did not set his love on you, nor choose you because you are more in number than any other people, for you were the least of all peoples. But because Yahuwah loves you, and because he would keep the oath which he swore to your fathers, Yahuwah has brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you from the house of bondage, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Therefore, know that Yahuwah your Elohim, he is Elohim, the faithful Elohim who keeps covenant and mercy for 1,000 generations with those who love him and keeps his commandments. That's Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 1 through 9. I could go through many scriptures of his commands like this. It will be overwhelming though. I will be placing these scriptures on PDFs on my website though, so you can all go back and reference them. This is why it is so important for us to all read the scriptures for ourselves, because we can have such a different view of Yahuwah if we lean on our own understandings. He desired that Israel was set apart from the other nations, and that they did not follow those other nations' ways. He desired that they were set apart and only followed him. Israel and Judah, though, disobeyed him and did the exact opposite. They intermingled with the other nations, sought after other gods, followed the ways of the other nations, no longer followed Yah's commandments and statutes, and they sinned against Yah, provoking him to jealousy. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against Yahuwah their Elohim, who had brought them up out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And they had feared other gods, and had walked in the statutes of the nations whom Yahuwah had cast out from before the children of Israel, and the kings of Israel, which they had made. Also, the children of Israel secretly did against Yahuwah their Elohim things that were not right, and they built for themselves high places in all their cities. From watchtower to fortified city, they set up for themselves sacred pillars and wooden images on every high hill and under every green tree. Then they burned incense on all the high places, like the nations whom Yahuwah had carried away before them. And they did wicked things to provoke Yahuwah to anger, for they served idols, of which Yahuwah had said to them, "You shall not do this thing." Yet Yahuwah testified against Israel and against Judah by all his prophets, every seer, saying, "Turn from your evil ways and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets." Nevertheless, they would not hear, but stiffened their necks like the necks of their fathers, who did not believe in Yahuwah your Elohim. And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he has made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he had testified against them. They followed idols, became idolaters, and went after the nations who were all around them, concerning whom Yahuwah had charged them that they should not do like them. So they left all the commandments of Yahuwah their Elohim, made for themselves a molded image and 2 calves, made a wooded image, and worshipped all the host of heaven and served Baal. And they caused their sons and daughters to pass through the fire, practice witchcraft and soothsaying, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of Yahuwah, to provoke him to anger. That's 2 Kings chapter 17, verses 7 through 17. These things are written many times. Israel disobeyed Yah, and instead of being set apart to himself only, they wanted to follow the other nations. And this is such a big understanding and a main difference between the wheat and the tares. So using Christmas as an example, so many people justify the celebration of Christmas because they feel that they are honoring the Messiah and their intentions are pure. They feel Yah knows their heart, and those who separate themselves from these holidays are just being extra. They misuse Scripture, and they look to find anyone that will tell them to not let anyone judge them. And this is all because the actual point of our faith and who we actually are is missing to them. Many people practice a lawless faith that promotes disobedience to his word because of the grace he provided. The tares have taught that because Israel was not able to keep Yah's laws, that Yah has basically done away with his law and now accepts everyone, just as long as they believe in Jesus. But this is not the actual faith and the actual grace that Yah provides. I mean, listen, let's be clear. Yah showed the world grace by giving us a way of redemption and access to him, even though we did not deserve it. We have not earned his grace or forgiveness. He gave it to us freely, so that we now have access to him directly and can be led by him directly. We are saved by his grace, not by us working hard to come back to him. But even through our grace, he still desires that we are set apart unto him. Being his means that we are not the world's. That's why there are so many scriptures that tell us to not follow the traditions of men and the ways of this world. When we decide that we are coming to him and accepting his gift of salvation, this means that we are choosing him away from this world. And so we are now a holy, set apart, called out nation unto him. We are different than everyone in this world, and it is by our conduct of life that sets us apart from the rest of the world. So when we accept him, the only way we are to live is as set apart people. So when the rest of the world does things to honor their gods, we don't just take a look at their ways and make them fit with Yah. That's actually what they do. The reason we are the salt of the earth is because we do not do those things. He wants and desires that we are all set apart from the ways and the mindsets of this world. So for Christmas as an example, if we read in scripture that Yah set a day for us to worship the Messiah's birthday, and he commanded it, then of course we do it and we enjoy it. But if we do not find it, we don't just make it up because the rest of the world did. The tares in Christianity teach that doctrine, and many people follow it because they don't actually understand the true doctrine of being set apart. This is why it says to not be conformed to the world. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of Elohim. That's Romans chapter 12, verse 2. And so, in regards to Christmas, people that practice these pagan holidays are in direct rebellion against the Most High. When we accept Messiah, we are to renew our mind and prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of Yah. And so it's very clear. If he tells us we can do it, we do it. If he speaks against it, we don't. And if he does not mention it, we do not add it in. We do not do the things that the heathens that were not led by Yahuwah did. We do not learn the way of the Gentiles. But Satan has mixed in tares that has said that it's okay to love Yah while also doing the things that the rest of the nations did. Because, of course, Yah knows your heart. But the truth is that, in regards to Christmas and many other things, you need to deal with this. Your heart actually says you do not desire to be set apart from the rest of the nations. And that is so dangerous to say. You desire to be like the other nations, just with the difference of calling upon Jesus. And so it must be known and understood that the reason we do not celebrate Christmas is because when we come into the faith of our Messiah, we are grafted into Israel and are now called to be set apart from the rest of the world and set apart from the way they do things. And one thing you will not hear when people talk about condoning the celebration of Christmas is that no one talks about being set apart. It's always a statement of, this doesn't matter, and that doesn't matter, and God knows my heart. There is a desire to conform to the ways of the world rather than be set apart from it. And it's something that you need to understand because it is very dangerous. And so as this wicked holiday passes, and many of you see what others are doing, and maybe you question if maybe you're just being extra, or you know that you shouldn't celebrate Christmas, but you're not fully grounded as to why, let this understanding be the foundation of your faith from now on, and then build on this way and understanding, because this understanding goes a lot further than just the celebration of this pagan holiday of Christmas. This is an important topic, and I cannot stress it enough. So I am going to expand on this past the celebration of Christmas and really explain our faith, because there are many of you that just do not understand this topic. And as we approach these last days and the agendas that are coming, it is important to be fully grounded in your faith, according to the word and not according to your own understanding and the traditions and mindsets of men. So we need to understand truly what our faith is all about and what it means to be set apart. I hope this understanding brings people into a deeper relationship with the Most High and brings us all more power in the spiritual realm. Do not celebrate these traditions of men. Know that your rejection of Christmas is absolutely the right thing. Do not be caught up by these tares. Mark any of the influencers who claim to be Yah's but are still conforming to the ways of this world. Be called and separate as Yah desires, and remove yourself from any influence that brings you into conformity and rebellion against Yah and his ways. Reject the ways of this world and stand up strong and be holy. Be kodesh. Be set apart and be blessed. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. Okay, thanks again for watching. If this has blessed you, please make sure to like it and share it with others that you may feel do not understand this message. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you subscribe to this channel. Elohim willing, I upload every Friday. Please don't forget to follow this ministry on Facebook and Instagram, as well as on my website, truthunedited.com. I really would like to give a special thank you and shout out to all of you who have donated and continue to support this ministry. I'm very thankful for the love of our Father, and I thank you for your obedience to his call on your heart. I'm humbled by your support, and I'm very thankful for you. You know who you are. I sincerely thank you. Be blessed. Okay. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. I love you all.